Hello there and welcome to OctopusDo. I'm Christian Ross. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and click on that little bell icon so that you get notifications of when new content comes out. Today, we're actually going to do a project. They love this particular style. It's called a Tree of Life pendant, and it will get you going with some basic wire weaving and wire wrapping skills. So let's get started. So the first thing you've got to do is make that circle frame. All you need for that is to take something round, like I have a ring mandrel here. If you want a smaller one, you can use all the different ring sizes. Or if you want a big one, and we're going to go big today, then you can use just about any found object that is nice and rigid enough to keep that circular shape. Here, I'm using some of my favorite plastic storage containers for beads, and I'm going to use that to make my circle. So I've taken my spool of 14 gauge wire, straightened it out with my fingers. You can use a nylon jaw plier or you can use a wire straightener, and that works great, but I've gotten used to just kind of petting the wire out, and works for me. But don't forget, you can use other tools. Here I'm using my round mandrel, which is my bead storage container, and I'm just going to bend the wire around. I've made about a loop and a half around. Now, I'm not going to cut it off yet because I'm going to make my veil and a little decorative loop in the middle, and then I'll cut it, and that way I don't waste any extra wire. So on this end, it's got a little point to it. That's because I used my flush cutters on this last and used the flush side for the last project, and so now I'm left with a point. So the first thing that I'm going to do is take my flush cutters. I'm going to come in and cut that point off flat. Boom. There you go. And if you wonder why I put my finger there, that's so that that little piece that I cut off doesn't go flying across the room. So I cut that flat, and then I come in with my round nose pliers, and I'm going to curl this point up. So I grab the wire, and where I'm holding that, where I'm grabbing it, is that little tip of the wire is even with my pliers. You see, you can barely see that there. That gives me a good round point all the way through. Now I rolled that up. I take my pliers away and readjust my grip because I'm sitting here like this, and that's not comfortable. I readjust my grip and continue rolling. And I look, and I have a teeny tiny little bit of a gap there, so I just readjust my grip again and keep going until that point touches right there. Looking good. All right. Now, I come back and I have to, well, I don't have to, but my design, I like making a loop toward the middle. I end up covering that up with the chips, but it's a nice way for me to just end that wire, and I like how it looks. And I take the wire that is still attached to the coil, and I roll it around the bottom jaw of my plier. And so I can see how that gets started. Now, if you want to see how my hands are, I'm going to hold this up so you can see the position I'm in right now. It's a little awkward. So I've got this hand that went this way, and this finger is holding the bottom wire, and I can't go any further. So what I do, of course, take out the plier, readjust my grip, put it back in, and continue rolling around. So I'll show you that. So there, I put my pliers back in and continue rolling around. And so I get nice circles that way. Look at that. Now, where this overlaps, that's the bottom piece. Where that overlaps, that's where I'm going to trim my wire. So I just come in with my flush cutters again, and I'm going to snip this right where it overlaps. You see there? Give it a snip, making sure not to cut the wire underneath. And there you go. Very cool. I have a little bit of an overlap there, so I can go back and trim it a little closer if I want. So I'll do that really quickly. Little bit of trial and error on that. Put my thumb over it, so I'm not going to shoot that little piece and put it in anybody's eye. There we go. Ta-da! Very cool. Okay, so this is my frame. Back up a little bit and let you see it in its entirety. So this is approximately, I measured it earlier, about 1 3/4 inch in diameter. So that means going from one side to the other. It's about 1 3/4 inch. This is 14 gauge wire, which is a bigger, thicker wire, which is really nice. It's not too soft. It's got a good form to it, but I really want this to not move at all because I need it to be a thick frame. And this is a craft wire, which means that it has a copper center and then it has a coating on top of that to give it this gold color. Well, copper wire is traditionally more of a softer metal. So what I do to stiffen this up and make it a good solid frame is I lightly hammer it. When I say I lightly hammer it, I'm not pounding on it to give it a texture, anything like that. I am lightly hammering it, and that will work harden the wire and cause it to stay in that shape and give it more of a resistance. So what I'm using for that, I have a bench block here, and I'll set that here. Let me see. It's just going to lay against the bench block like so. Always remember, put your fingers toward the edge of the bench block so that you don't hammer your fingers. Now, I'm using a chasing hammer, and a chasing hammer is one that has a smooth surface. It's slightly domed, and that will allow me to hit this and not leave any kind of texture on that. I'll give you a good close up there. See how nice and smooth and pretty that is. So what I do is I'll hold this here, and I'm lightly going to tap. So I'm just very lightly tapping. I would normally do this down on the table, but I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. Okay. Turn that around and make sure I get the top. Okay. So what this does is this gives it your work hardening to make it stiffer, to make it more rigid, and you can see it has more of a spring back. Little bit of texturing there, but it's not as soft, so it's going to hold that shape. But also, if I had had any kind of wobble in my circle, then that would have flattened everything out. So now I have a great frame to hold my gemstones. The next part of this is we're going to make the tree trunk and then the roots. So for that, I've already cut smaller wire. Now, I like a lot of branches. I like a lot of gemstones and a lot of branches. A lot of my trees are very full, and that just makes me happy. I'll show you this garnet guy close up. He's got so many different garnets on that. Love it. And I'll turn it sideways so you can see how much they really stick up. I mean, all of the trees that I've seen are absolutely beautiful. They use natural gemstones and things like that. But I really like a fuller tree rather than a wimpy, skimpy tree. So we're going to do some full trees. For your tree wires, I cut these 5 inches long to go with my 1.5 inches. So that gives it a nice overhang. And the gauge that I use for this particular tree, I am using 14 of these 5-inch pieces in I did a mix of a 24 gauge and a 26. These are my 14 different cut pieces of wire. Now, how I get this into my tree shape, I'll show you the technique that works best for me. I like taking my bundle of wire and I kind of tap them all together on the table. There we go, to where they're all even on one side. And I look about 3/4 of the way down. So right about there. And you can mark that if you want, but I generally just kind of eyeball it. I'm taking my little bundle here and turning it sideways. And I'm using my bent chain nose plier as an extra pair of hands. So I kind of fan everything out in this hand and I grab the bottom of this with my bent chain nose plier and I'm going to just twist. There we go. So I'll show you what that looks like. Is I've grabbed it here and twist. And I just did one twist and that one twist looks like that. But of course, you're gonna need more than one twist. So I can just come back in and give it a few more. That gives me that first little bit of twisting. There you go. Now, the short end for me is going to be my root system. And then the long end here is going to be my branches and where the leaves are going to go. So with this root system, I've got it pointing up now. I've got the big twist, so that's the bottom of the tree trunk. I'm going to start dividing out my roots into 2 sections first. And then I come in here, and this is why I love using the bent chain nose, is because I come in this way and just give it a few twists. There's one. And now I spin it around and I give it a few more twists. And so now my tree trunk has been split into 2 roots. Well, I'll take that and further divide everything up and start just splitting some off and twisting until I get a nice organic tree root pattern system. Now, if you look, I'm not getting very far away from the tree trunk here because my roots, I want all of the roots to be very close together, because what you see above ground in a tree is just a little bit of that root system. Now they reach out and they spread throughout the forest, of course, but what you see above ground is always clustered against the tree. So I like looking at the bottom of my frame as the ground. And so I want to see only the parts of the roots that are above the ground. Now, I've seen others before that are more equal. The branches and the roots have equal weight, but this is just the way I do it. All right. So I split that out a little bit more and I keep twisting a little bit more. Just kind of turning this around in my hand, whichever way is comfortable to hold this. And be very careful. Do not over twist and do not clamp down too hard with your pliers, because then you'll start breaking these smaller wires. They're not able to take as much pressure. They're very delicate. There you go. So I'm just bending and twisting, and I have such a nice, pretty root system going here. So I ended up with 1, 2, 3, 4 main offshoots. Well, it's 2, and then those 2 are divided into 2 offshoots into my root system. As I start adding this to the frame, then I may change that. I may twist some more smaller ones, but let's just see how that goes. So now, I take my roots, my tree with the roots, and I hold this up to my frame and see kind of where the twists that I have so far sit against the frame, and I will adjust things as I go accordingly, just to what feels right to me. So here we go. So you see where this root comes across and goes toward the frame, but I have all of this untwisted wire. So I'm going to take this and kind of point it downward. And now, check that out. I like the way that these guys lay a little bit more toward the frame. It has more of the twisted part to the frame. This one here, I'm going to just push downward a little bit. This one, I like that, but he's going into too much of a straight line. When have you ever seen a tree grow in a straight line? So I bend him up and then bend him that way just to give it more of an angle. And then that's looking pretty good to me too. So the whole thing, I'll show you the top here, nothing's attached right now, is movable and very flexible. So I'm going to start attaching my roots to my frame. So I hold everything in my hands, and I'm going to tell you, if you have issues with dexterity and it's hard to hold 50 things in your hands at once, like an octopus, then you can always tape this part together while you work, and that's going to give you stability and could help you out a lot. But if you're like me, I hold everything in my hands all at the same time, and that's how I work. That's how an octopus do. So the first thing I'm going to do is I like to start in the middle. So I have these two segments of branches that are the middle for me, and so I'm going to kind of bend the outside ones up and away so I don't get tangled up in them. So I bend that down. I love it that we're working with wire and it's so flexible. And I bend this guy down so I've got just the two segments that I want to work with. All right, so I'm holding this together and I start one root at a time, spread them out a little bit. There we go, one root at a time, and I start wrapping my little root here around the frame. And I'm starting with just my fingers, but then I can come in here with my pliers when I get toward the end of this wire and really get it nice and tight against the frame. And again, that's why I like working with the bent chain nose plier, because I can reach in and get that point. See this little point sticking up? Well, and we have help in the studio now, yes. The little point sticking up, I need to make that lay down and behave. So I'm coming, okay, wire is bad for kitty cats. Oh my goodness. All right, so the point sticking up here, I need that to lay down and behave. So I come in with the tip of my bent chain nose plier and I pull it around as far as I can, and it's still sticking up. So what I do is I'm grabbing this end, pushing against it, and I'm rolling the pliers over the wire. Basically, I am burnishing that end down so it's not sticking up and pointy. So I just grab the wire and roll it around, and no pointy part. So I do that with all of the rest of these, and that's how I get my root system. So I start with the next one and I'm rolling this around. I'll back up so you can see. I'm grabbing the end, I'm pulling it around the frame, and that just causes everything to line up really well. Another thing I like about using longer wires like this is the fact that I end up with rolled wire around the frame of my tree, and it's not just this bare wire. I really like having a lot of texture on these. Folding down the next one and pulling this around. There we go. Just keep going. Until I get all of these woven around my frame. See the little point? And I just come in and burnish that down. And there we go. So end up with this really cool texture. Now, since I divided this in half, I've got these roots going one direction. I want these roots going in the opposite direction. So I'm going to start weaving these down and around one at a time. Get this one out of the way and just keep going. Okay, so I've got 2 of the root systems down. And I have these pieces that I bent out of the way, so I'm going to bend them back down. And I'm looking and I'm thinking, I kind of want to spread these out a little bit more and give it more of a root system. So I'm going to split this one into 2 and twist it a little bit more, so that it reaches further out. So we have some long reaching roots. And same thing with its brother right next to it there. Don't know why this is a he, but apparently so. And then I just play around with how everything is bent to my liking. Twist it some more. There we go. Like that. And start weaving that root system into the frame. And the further out I make these twists attach onto the frame, that means the higher up the wire goes around the frame, so the more it's covered. Okay, burnish that down. So it tucks in quite nicely. Look at that. All right, and then going to have, that's what we've got so far for our roots. Maybe I'll have this guy bent up a little bit before coming over and down. Yeah, I like the way that looks. Like that. Start twisting. And there we go. So basically that's how I make my root system, because I need to go back and I'll do everything I just did. I'll mirror it on the other side. Not exactly, because I don't want these to be completely symmetrical. But I'll tuck in the other side just like I did this one. But I'll show you what I've got so far. There you go. Now each one of these is different. Every one of these that I make is different. The roots are a little different. After you've got everything anchored onto the frame, you can still go in and adjust everything. I'll show you a little bit of the manipulation there. Just come in here, pull that a little ways, maybe pull this way. There we go. Bring that up and just really play with how everything just lays, because this gives it more of a craggly look. Like, yeah, I like how that's looking so far. Basically, all right, so I'm going to skip ahead a little bit and fast forward to this guy that I have in progress. So remember how I did the root system and everything's attached now, but my tree is really loose so far. So I need to go in and tighten up that tree body and give it more of a shape and form that I like. So here we go. There's the root system and my loose tree body. So I come in here, grab, I use a bent chain nose is my favorite tool for this, and I'll use it throughout to do all of my shaping. So I'm grabbing that bundle of wire again and twist, and I'm using my frame and I'm using the roots to kind of hold the bottom of that tree as I twist. Now, you see how that tightened everything up? Well, then I'm going to start breaking off into different branches. So I'll just move some of these this way, some of these this way, and really play with that. And right now I've got 1, 2, let's do 3. I'm gonna do 1, 2, 3 groups. So I'll start twisting those groups to make thick branches. And as you know, thicker branches give way to thinner branches. There you go. So keep going there. So that's 2 twists. I'll do the one at the bottom, or I say the bottom because I've got it upside down. So do the one at the top. There you go. So basically keep playing around with this until you get all of the branches where you'd like, and then you're going to start adding your leaves, your gemstone leaves. So I'll skip ahead a little bit now and show you what I've got so far. Here's one that I really like how everything's laid out. I love all of my root system here. I love this withered tree, and I love all my little branches. Let's see. Find something a little darker that I can hold up there for you. Let's have something within arm's reach. Here we go. Love. There you go. So that's looking really good so far. I spread out all of the branches so that I will be able to easily see where I want to put all my beads. I start with the ones pointing straight up first because I'm going to use that to connect the frame wire together and stabilize everything. So now I have to choose which gemstones I'm going to use. All right. What do you think? Malachite? Yeah, I like that idea. The gold. The gold and the green always look really pretty together. Let's do malachite. So I have my malachite chip strand and going to snip this open. Pull some chips off. The nice thing about working with gemstone chips is they don't roll everywhere. Okay, so I'm going to bend the branches that I don't need right now a little bit out of the way. So I'm going to start with these 3. I load up my middle branch with my chips. All right, so when I have these on here, do you see how the wire goes right up to that bottom loop? Get real close for you. Like so. I'll then take the end of my wire and put it through the top, like so, and pull. I'll show you from the back side. Okay, then, so So it's coming through the top there, and I have it go back through the bottom. Pull it nice and tight. Keep wrapping around and it will make those two loops now connected so you have a full circle. Great. All right, I'm going to stop while I still have a little bit of wire left because I'm going to show you how I make all of my ends tuck in nice and neat. So this has gone around the loop these two loops several times. Because I was grabbing the end of my wire with my bent chain nose pliers, I have kind of a ragged end here, and that's not going to look good no matter what I do to it. So I'm going to cut off that little ragged end bit right there. Okay. Now I have a short piece. To keep this all nice and neat and make sure all those little cut pieces don't end up pulling up, I'm not going to continue wrapping between these two loops. I'm going to burnish it against the frame. Here's what I'm talking about. Is I grab this little end piece, and instead of going between these two loops again, I pull it down and over, so it's over here. Keep going down, so it's down here, and then roll it up around the wire next to the loop, and then do that burnishing trick. Turn it around, make sure it's nice and flat. Okay, so I'll show you what that looks like nice and close. So I ended it next to the two loops. Turn it around. I ended it right there. Okay. So that is my first branch. Looking good so far. Keep doing that and wrap around the entire piece, and we'll have a nice full tree in no time. And I start wrapping that around. Show where I'm at, and it can go faster. Yes, must have a cat break. Must have a cat break. Perfect, yes. We're doing something here. As I work and as all of these leaves fill up this area, I really start going through my chips and look for pieces that really fill in the gaps left. Like this triangular piece works perfect just right there. Because I'm using so many wires for my branches, the space fills up pretty quickly. And so I may even have to overlap branches, stacking one or two on top of each other. But that, again, just gives it a fuller look. I love working with these big, juicy chips, and I love making full, big, juicy trees. Almost done. I just have 2 left. Look at this. Oh, I love how this is turning out. Oh. All right. Down to the last one, last branch. This is a very well-known design, but honestly, it just takes a few tweaks to make it something that is truly your own and truly unique. Because just like no 2 leaves are the same, then no 2 pendants will be the same. Yes, this is a very full one. Having to go through and look for tiny chips to fill in my spaces, to just go in between the gaps there. But I like that. I really like how thick and beautiful it makes these. All right. So that's what I've got so far, and I'm just going to weave this last tail in. Always remember while you're working on projects, if you need to take a break, take a deep breath, move your fingers around. You've got to take care of yourself and take care of your body as you go. Make sure you have good posture. Make sure your shoulders aren't scrunched up around your ears. Trust me, your body will thank you. Wow, okay, I think I'm done. Check this out. Now, there are a couple of different things that you could do. You can finish this off here. You can bead a strand of different beads to make a complete necklace, make it all one piece of jewelry and not just a pendant. The way I design these, I have the bail going around on a flat plane, so it's got a circle facing you. One thing I like to do with my cord, and I'll pull this around, is if I'm using a thinner cord, I will just loop that around. I'll show you what I'm talking about. And that way I don't need another jump ring to make a bail or anything like that. I just loop my cord around like that. But it's very easy if you'd like to add just a simple jump ring to the top, and that way your cord goes straight through. That part, totally up to you. I even like making these little guys as earrings, and so you can have an entire suite. You can do earrings with a pendant to match. These guys are ruby zoisite, and the chips are a little smaller in that, so I thought it would be great for earrings. So this is a really fun project. Well, I do hope that you've enjoyed this one, and let me know what you think below. Just leave me a comment. If you liked it, click on the like button. As always, now that you know, go make something.